just because I didn't get to introduce myself to everyone, my name is Beth Perry. I'm one of the co-owners here at Wellness 360. Some of you, I think you all were in here. We have a really big move coming next week, and we're really excited about it. And in the new building, we're hoping to have these workshops at least once to twice a month. So if you want, we'll keep you in the newsletter, keep you kind of abreast of what's coming next, and we're gonna have a lot of really fun things coming up. Having said that, Lindsay and Lindsay's my co-owner, she's actually at the new building now getting things set up. We do physical therapy here, massage therapy, and group fitness classes for disease management. And what that means is our group fitness classes are based on diagnoses. So osteoporosis, Parkinson's disease, help me out, Nicole. Yoga for stress reduction. We have a mindfulness class for stress reduction to learn how to meditate.
Yep.
Yeah, so we have different classes. All of them, most of them, do require an initial evaluation that is covered through insurance. But that's because they're health-centered classes, so that we want to make sure we know who's in our class, so we can modify where things need to be modified. Yeah.
Are you part of the 360 Wellness in Webster?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's typically
A
where.
lot easier.
Yeah. I know the reason I chose this location because it's only like 4 miles from the new building. So I wanted to bring in people that would be willing to travel to the new building. Our Webster people, which is really funny, our Webster people are all following us. They love us.
Like, sure, okay. Well, because I grew up in Webster too, and I work at the Webster location pretty much except this moment. And you know, I think when you live in Webster, you're so used to doctors not being in Webster that you're moving and you're like, yeah, you and everyone else, okay, let's go.
I had someone from Ontario go, "You're moving," and I said, "I know, but I live in Ontario too, so we'll go together." And she goes, "Well, I'm still coming." I was like, "I'm still coming. I just wanted to complain." Anyway, I'm going to introduce you to Nicole. Nicole is our clinic director. She's also one of our first hires for physical therapy. When we started this clinic 4 years ago, Lindsay and I just decided that we were going to do what we love to do, and we do one-on-one treatments, and we just wanted to kind of ride out our retirement. We're both in our late 40s, and we just wanted to ride out retirement. So we had no idea that we were going to explode as quickly as we did. So here we are, and we really just want to give back to the community. So that's what we're doing here. Please feel free to ask questions. If you have any specific questions, you don't have to raise your hand. You can just ask them out loud. But you guys brought up a lot of really great points about balance and fall, because the number one risk of falling is fear of falling. So hopefully by the end of today, we can give you some comfort and give you some education and help you leave here feeling more confident, and give you some really safe exercises you can do at home, because when you practice balance, you'll gain balance. It's the way the body is structured. So the neuron connections happen. So the more you practice, if you're not currently practicing your balance, you're losing it. So that's what I say. If you're not practicing, you're losing. So, all right, I will introduce Nicole Lansfame. Said that right? It came out really quickly, and I was like, oh.
No, you did it right. You're good. You can't think about my last name if you're going to say it. You just have to say it. I always love when I go someplace like to go shopping or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, do you have a rewards account with us?" "Yes." "Can you give me your name?" "Nicole Lansfame." And they're like, just stare at me like, you're going to spell that, right? But anyway, like Beth said, my name's Nicole. I'm one of the physical therapists here, and I'm our clinic director. And balance is working on balance and working with people who have balance issues. I get super nerdy about it. I just love working on it and talking about it and educating people about it. So here we are. So I'm going to make sure I try to hit most of the things everybody said. I think we have in the handout here to talk about. If there's something that I don't hit, either somewhere in there or at the end, let me know and we can talk about it more too. All right. So like Beth said, if you're not actively working on your balance, you're losing it, right? We already know as we get older, doesn't everyone love when the doctor's like, well, as we age, right? We know it's easier to lose muscle than it is to gain muscle. We know it's easier to fatigue than it is to build our endurance. We know that it's easier to lose our balance than it is to keep our balance. You said you noticed probably something you've done 100 times. You went to reach or step over something and you were like, oh, can't do that anymore. When did that happen? So have to think about all of these things and practice them a little bit more as we get a little bit older. 1/3 of Americans over the age of 65 will fall each year. So that's why, like, you get to the age of 60, 65, you go to the doctor. How many times have you fallen this year? That just happened to my mom, and she almost punched the doctor. She called me and she's like, they asked me if I fell. Am I old now? And I was like, calm down. It's because you had a knee replacement. Relax. Like, that's what they ask. Everyone calm down. My grandma is one of those people who is a frequent faller. And she was really excited because one year when they asked her how many falls have you had, she got to say none. She was super excited. I got her a balloon. I tied it to her wheelchair. We were all happy. She was not thrilled that I tied a balloon to her, but whatever. She was fine. She liked it. Every time you have a fall, it increases your risk of falling. So the more you fall, and a reason for that being is, if you have the strength or, lack of strength, lack of balance, any of those things that are going to cause you to fall, they're not going to change magically because you fell once. Like, it's not like you got it out of the way and now you're done, sort of thing. The other thing is that what Beth said, fear of falling is a big risk factor for falling. And normally once someone falls once, your fear of it skyrockets. That's what most people will say is, who come in and they tell me they've had a fall and they say, now I don't want to do anything because I'm so terrified of falling. So that's why that risk increases with every fall. It also, I already said that, sorry, your fear of falling will increase your risk of future falls. So what can affect your balance? There's tons of stuff. So there's your intrinsic factors, which are just the bodily things that happen. I kind of talked about them a little bit with your different strength and things like that. So your somatosensory system is basically your sensation. So it's your ability to feel the floor underneath your feet. Someone said they had neuropathy before. So this is you, right? If you can't feel your feet, the bottom of your feet when you're walking.
It's more like I feel like I'm walking on stones all the time.
Yes. Yep. And it feels, or my grandma says that it feels like she had, like, when your sock gets rolled up in your shoe.
When it first happened, I kept checking the inside of my shoe. I thought there was something wrong with my shoes.
Right.
With my feet.
Yeah. So if you can't feel the floor underneath you, or it always feels like you're walking on something, your brain doesn't have the input then of what you're stepping on, where you're stepping, that you're secure. It's going to affect how you react to walking, moving, stepping over something. Your vestibular system, you had said something about your vestibular system, right? So for those of you who aren't as familiar with that, that's kind of what people say your inner ear. If people say they're dizzy or something because, they have an inner ear issue, that's what they mean. So your vestibular system basically lets you know your head position in space. So if your vestibular system is working properly, like I do not have vestibular issues, I'm standing here without having to look in the mirror or know, my brain knows that my head position is this way. If I were to start falling, your vestibular system lets you know, okay, your head is tilting, you should do something now to right yourself. If you don't have those reactions for whatever reason, these can be damaged by either if you're in a car accident and you get a concussion, if you have any other type of head trauma, or sometimes it can just magically happen, which is quite annoying. A lot of times people will say they have where if you change positions quickly and you get dizzy, that can be one of those things. So sometimes when people stand up, Beth talked about standing up and making sure you have your feet underneath you before you move. That's really important for people who might have some vestibular issue or a vestibular dysfunction, because when they stand up, they're going to feel a little bit dizzy and they need to take a second. On top of that, proprioception, knowing where the rest of your body is in space. So again, if you don't have any issues with that, I know where my brain knows where my legs are, my brain knows where my arms are, my brain knows I'm upright. If I don't know that and I can't rely on my proprioception as much, then my vision is going to be the thing that really has to play a role in my balance. So being able to, look in front of me and see. That's the reason why if people say you're doing a balance test to stare at one spot, because it kind of stabilizes you and lets your brain know that you're steady, gives you a little bit more of that input. And then last, and probably the thing that we as PTs, we can work on, a lot of these things as well, but the muscular strength is one of the biggest things that that we can work on in PT and you guys can work on as well. Biggest things for that are your core strength, because everything starts from the core out, right? If this is wobbling all over the place, it's gonna, make you go all over the place. On top of that, your glutes and your ankles actually play a huge role. So we're getting into this a little bit later too of how those work, but if you don't have ankle stability and hip stability, again, you're gonna be wobbling all over the place, kind of fighting a losing battle. Think about it if you're like on an uneven surface and you go to step, how your ankle has to kind of turn and do what it needs to do to stabilize you. That's why those are so important. And like I said, we're talking about that too in just a second. I'll give you way more information about that than you ever wanted. As far as these extrinsic factors, so these are things that are outside of our body that some of them we can actually affect, right? Like you can go home right now and do some of these things. Other things, we might have to look at talking to a doctor, things like that. So number one is core lighting. So I just said if we don't have like the sensation, or our vestibular system is not working properly, or our proprioception, right? That's another connection between our brain and our body. If those aren't working properly, then we're probably very vision dependent. Knowing basically our eyes have to give our brain the input of where we are in space, that we're upright, that we're safe. This is why when a lot of people will say their falls occurred like when they got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. It's not really because they forgot like how their house is, or they tripped over. A lot of times they didn't trip over anything, but it was really dark, and so you didn't exactly know where you were going. Most of the time when people tell me, oh, I fell going to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Okay, did you turn the light on? No. Okay, well. So the easiest thing you can do for that is get a nightlight to stick in your hallway. They also make these, and I'm blanking on what they're called right now, but they're like these big flat lights that automatically will go on when your lights go off. So they're basically like automatic night lights. I talk about my grandma a lot when I talk about balance, because that's, who I have done all this stuff to. I bought her like 4 and stuck them all over her house. She had no choice. So stuck them all over her house, and they're pretty bright because they're probably about that big, but they're flush against the wall so that there's nothing like sticking out. You don't whack it with your leg or the vacuum or anything like that. So I'll tell people to get those, because then you don't even have to think about it when you get up in the middle of the night. You don't have to think about turning on the light. You don't have to think about turning on the night light before you go to sleep. Sticking them in the hallway, sticking them in the bathroom, wherever. Uneven surfaces, I kind of started talking about this a little bit, are another big one. This one we can't always change, right? We gotta go places outside. We can't control what the sidewalk is like or what a parking lot might be like, right? But uneven surfaces are gonna affect that balance because everything's not flat, right? Our muscles have to work a little harder to control when we're on something uneven. Even sometimes people will say like those big, like more plush carpets are a little bit harder because your ankles have to work harder to stabilize you as opposed to a nice flat floor like this. That's where jumping ahead slightly, proper footwear is gonna come in really handy. I know you talked about the men's shoes, and I think you had said the same thing. The biggest thing with your footwear, and this might be why you do the men's shoes and you can let me know, is making sure there's not like squishing your foot so tight that it's uncomfortable. But you also don't want them, like Beth said, the woman who was, wearing shoes that were 2 sizes too big. If your shoes are too big, then your feet are sliding all around and there's nothing secure to give, your feet input of where they are. Especially,
my theory is that it's the men that design them, and they design them for other men.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Sure, could be. Most design flaws, no offense, sorry, I tend to blame on men. I'm like, a man definitely designed this, for sure. Like,
let me give you warning. I always say Nicole's words are like warm hugs sometimes. So
that's my theory anyway, that they design them for men. So.
Yeah, for sure.
You can buy a foot scale through Amazon. You know, the time when you go to a store like JCPenney's or Kenny's, yeah, you can buy the foot scales too.
Yeah, you can buy those pretty, not bad.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll always tell people about footwear is having a back on your shoe is really important. I just had a guy this week come in and, told me he fell, and I said, well, what happened? He's like, well, I was wearing slippers, and they were the type of slippers that like only cover right here, and then the back is just that flat part. There's no back to them. And when he went to turn, his foot turned, his shoe didn't, and he stepped on the back of the slipper, and he went out from there. So having a back on your shoe, you know when you move, the shoe is going to move with you. Same thing with, you know, why it's important to have your shoes fitting properly, so you know when you move, the shoe will move with you. You know, then I have some of those stupid slippers too that I tell people not to buy ever, right? And sometimes you're walking and all of a sudden you're like, my heel is not on the shoe anymore, and the heel's like all splayed out to the side. Not very supportive, not gonna help you if you're already having some balance issues or unstable balance or fear of falling.
So what would you describe as the ideal shoe?
It's a little different for everybody. Ideally, it would be something with a little bit of, and it depends on your foot, right? So I have a very flat foot myself. So I know for those of us who have some flatter feet, a little bit of arch support is really good. It keeps your ankle in the most stable position so that all your muscles can work as effectively. Anything with a back, which I've already said. And a lot of times I'll tell people if it's something they can, like, you know, laces or Velcro or things like that, something you can adjust the tightness of. Doesn't mean you can only wear shoes with Velcro or laces as long as they're like snug, not too snug, sort of. Enough that when you're walking, you don't feel like that heel slipping out the back. It doesn't feel like your foot is sliding around in the shoe. So that's why I just like the laces a little bit, because...
So are you talking really only sneaker-esque?
Not necessarily. Because if you're not going to do that, then you could do something like the shoes you have on are good as long as they're snug, right? If you're walking around and it feels like your heel is popping out of the back, not so, you know.
Do you want a rubberize
Yes.
bottom?
On the bottom, rubber is the best. Some of the shoes, like I always say the cutesy shoes, and again, I've worn them, and I will tell you a story too about that. You know, if they have the plastic bottoms, I always look now. And you can you can always, if you think they're cute, you can go get rubber put on the bottom, right? But I look now because, and this only happened 3 months ago, I had cutesy shoes on, and they had a plastic bottom, and it was wet, and it must have been in the fall, because it was a leaf that took me out. Was walking in a restaurant, and I hit that stupid leaf with my plastic bottom, and I went, and I went down, and my husband was in front of me, and he heard commotion behind me, and he's just going, please don't let that be Nicole, please don't let that be Nicole. So, it happens to me, and I don't think that, you know, I wouldn't say I'm fearful of falling or have balance concerns myself, but sometimes it just happens if you don't have the correct
I'm at the
footwear.
age when I really don't care if my shoes are cute.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, I want to stand up.
There are cute shoes though that still have the nice bottoms. The bottoms, I would say, snug and the bottoms are like the two biggest things that I would say. If the bottoms aren't slippery, like if you take your shoe and you put it on the ground right now and you try to rub it back and forth, it should be hard to slide your shoe. If it slides right over like a dishcloth, not enough. Yeah.
Well, like this morning wearing these, I slid up a stair and went down.
Oh my. Wearing those ones? So maybe those aren't the best. I know. It's hard to give. My mom is going to be one of those people. My mom loves her cute shoes. What I think I said before, my mom had a knee replacement, so they now ask her if she fell. She had to buy like really good shoes when that happened. It was like trying to buy sneakers with her was like the hardest thing I've ever done. I love my mom to pieces, but I was like, Mom, what about these? Well, they look very athletic. Yeah, it's a sneaker, Mom. Like, what do you want it to look like? Which was cracking me up, but I was like, okay. And she's found different brands that are very supportive. Ortho Feet is one of them. Vionics is another. Brooks is a really good one. I love my Brooks.
Yeah.
Vionics and Ortho Feet though will make like sandals or like cuter, if you will, shoes that are a little bit more supportive, have a back, that kind of thing. You can always look at those too. Other things is, we talked about uneven surface footwear, lack of awareness of your surroundings. I just made a joke this morning that this will be my downfall. Because I just like walk around, right? You're looking around. A lot of times, a good chunk of falls, not all of them, but a good chunk of falls can be avoided if we pay attention to what's in front of us, right? So looking in front of you, seeing, this is the thing where the parking lots we can't change. The curb might be coming up a little bit here, knowing you have to pick your foot up a little higher, or all those lovely potholes that happen this time of year, knowing to go around them as opposed to stepping and all of a sudden you step in them and you've gone down.
I went to Wegmans or Running Plaza, Hudson Titus one time shopping, with a lot of fruits and vegetables. I was walking and I slipped down onto my knee.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why, because I guess the floor was sturdy and I had a buildup on the bottom of my.
Yep.
So you gotta be careful for that too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that was like me and the leaf incident, so as I now call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the leaf took me right out.
Yeah.
The other thing, and you had mentioned about medications as well. Medications, sometimes the interaction of medications together or just one medication can have the side effect of dizziness or lightheadedness, fainting, things like that. So that's one of those things that paying attention to that, if you start, if you're feeling more off balance or feeling maybe more dizzy than usual or more unstable, it's a good idea to think, okay, did I start a new medication? Did I change any medications? Sometimes you don't notice it, but you like up a dosage of something maybe, and now it's enough to interact. Just something to keep in mind. Don't stop taking the medication. Call your doctor and tell them, since this change, I've been feeling this. Is this a side effect? Is this something that I should be focusing on? So as far as, things how we stop ourselves from falling, right? So let's say we've done all of these things. We've gotten our good footwear. We have, we have the night lights, all of those things.
What about using canes and walkers?
Canes and walkers. For sure. If that's something that you really feel horribly unstable and will give you more confidence, I'm all for it. The other thing that I will tell people all the time, because I shouldn't say no one, many people, if they're told by somebody, you should really try using a cane, you should really try using a walker, they don't want to. And I don't blame them, right? It's bulky, I've had people tell me, I had one woman go, it screams old lady. I'm like, well, it doesn't need to. Like, whatever. But either way, I'm like, yeah, well, so does falling down. So, you pick your battles. I don't know. What I'll tell people a lot of times, though, is especially if you're out, like Wegmans, I use as the example all the time, and there's other people around you, having a cane or a walker or a device of some sort kind of makes people stay back from you a little bit. So you're less likely to get bumped into, or people are willing to give you a little bit more space so you don't have to wiggle in between the two carts while you're trying to, while this person's looking at these cans and this person's looking at, chicken broth or whatever the heck, and you're trying to get through them, right? Because they both stopped at the same spot. It makes other people pay attention to you more. And I don't mean that in a bad way of they're looking at you, more so they're more aware that they should give you a little more space.
And also using it properly.
Yeah, and using it properly, for sure.
What does that mean?
So using it properly, have you ever seen people who have their cane and they're out in the world and they're kind of just walking and the cane is just going along for the ride? Do you know what I'm talking about? They're basically just carrying the cane. I love when I see people come in for PT and I saw someone come in the other day holding their walker up like this. It's not even touching the ground. I'm like, well, what was the point of that? They're like, well, you wanted me to show you. I'm like, okay, just holding it up in the air. So properly meaning knowing, how to use it, that it needs to be on the ground for one thing. Canes are wonderful. They take a little bit of coordination though to know when to put it, which foot to put it down with, what side to use it on, making sure that with a cane like that, for example, all 4 feet are on the floor, but when you're stepping. And having it at the right height as well. Have you ever seen I always picture the cute little old ladies who their walker is all the way up here. Yeah, they're really cute, but they look like this. Having it up there, it's all about leverage and physics basically. If it's all the way up
When
here,
I cracked my elbow, I discovered I could only cane with that hand.
yeah,
And that was very awkward because I couldn't use
yeah,
the hand I usually use with the cane.
right.
And switching hands was
very awkward. Yeah.
very awkward.
Exactly. So it's about being aware of those things, right? And being able to know those things about yourself, and sometimes you don't know till somebody tells you. A common thing we'll see is when people use canes, everyone thinks you should use it. Like, let's say you're using it because your left hip hurts or you just had hip surgery. Let's just use that as the example. Everyone thinks, okay, it's on my left, I should use, or I'm pointing to my right and I'm saying left, but whatever. I should use it on the same side. You don't walk like that though, right? You walk opposite. So then you've got someone using a cane, kind of walking like this, and they're like, well, it feels awkward and it's not doing anything. Well, right, because it should be on the other side. But these are things you don't know until someone, tells you.
I notice a lot of people are using walking sticks.
Yes. I know the walking sticks. And I have one woman who comes in with a walking stick, and whoever is in the clinic at the same time is like, oh, I love your walking stick. Like, everyone loves it so much, and she's like, thank you. Me and my walking stick are very happy.
That doesn't scream old person.
It does not scream old person. You're right. I don't think
like
assistive
that.
devices scream old person either. I think they scream safety and smart people. So that's what I am. That's what I think when I see people.
And I've already picked out the walker I want whenever that comes.
Yeah.
The one that's up high,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because otherwise, everybody goes like this.
Yep. Well, and that brings me good to the next point of making sure that it's the right height for you. You don't want it to be too low, because this happens. Too high, though, your elbows are like up at your ears, and you're not really, if you're not able to push through it with your arms, it's, effectively, it's not really doing anything for you, or, you'll just carry it around because you feel like it's not helping. So, things that, we can do, loss of balance happens, what does our body do to help us? So I talked about how your ankles and your hips and your core are the most important things for your balance, most important muscles, rather. So, when we have sort of a small loss of balance, right? So either we step on an uneven surface a lot of the times, or someone kind of nudges us at the store, things like that. Even something as simple as last week when it was super windy? You're like walking along or you're standing there and the wind comes and you're like, ooh, okay. Those are when your body goes into effective using those ankle strategies. So that's using those ankle muscles. So, if I stand on one leg, you'll see my ankle kind of bobbles around a little bit, right? Those are those muscles working so that I don't fall down, yeah? If we get a little bit bigger a bigger nudge, probably not the wind now, a bigger nudge or, sometimes I open the car door into myself. I didn't back up enough. I'm getting the car every day, still don't know where the door ends. Might be something like your hips then kick in because it's a little bit bigger. So now your glutes have to work, right? So that's your ability to kind of move your hips in relation to wherever you lost your balance and using those muscles to stabilize you. Something even bigger happens, like someone knocks you so hard that those muscles aren't enough, or you hit yourself with the car door so hard that you've knocked yourself completely off balance. Then you need to take a step, all right? Those are called your stepping strategies. So that's your body's ability to quickly realize it and step to save you, yeah? A lot of the time, this is where people will get into a little bit of trouble. Our reaction time, on top of it's easier to lose muscle than it is to gain it a little bit, our reaction time also decreases. So we don't take the reactions as fast to take the steps. So by the time our brain has realized, okay, it's time to take a step, it's too late and we're on the ground. These are all things, and I'm going to talk about PT in a second too, but these are all things that can be addressed with exercise, physical therapy, all of that kind of stuff. These are things that we can work on and practice and get better at. So basically, like I said, what can be done to improve your balance? Lower body strengthening in all of those places I talked about. And when I say lower body, I should also be including your core in there. So core strengthening and lower body strengthening. So lower body strengthening is the ankles and the hips, knowing that the stronger your glutes are, the stronger your ankles are, the more reactive they're going to be to those losses of balance that we talked about. And the stronger they are, and the more you practice them, the quicker your brain is going to be able to send the signal to those muscles so that when that loss of balance occurs, they react faster and you're safer when they do happen. Core strengthening, like I said, Your core is really important in helping you right yourself or, bring yourself back to the center when that happens, especially for those bigger losses of balance where you need to use those hip muscles, or when it's so big you need to take a step. If I take a step but my core doesn't do anything, I'm still going backwards, being able to keep you upright. Improving your posture is also a big one. We haven't talked too much about posture other than, sometimes when people use the walkers and they're down here. Depending on your posture, that can affect kind of how easily or not easily you may lose your balance. So if you're somebody who is bent forwards a little bit, and I didn't think anyone walked, I'm exaggerating a little bit, right? Bent forwards a little bit. If I catch my toe on something or I'm going forwards and I lose my balance, your head is pretty heavy. You're way more likely to topple forwards than you are if you were up in a little bit nicer posture. I don't know if you've ever seen people too, this one's a little bit less common to see out in the world, but people who kind of keep their weight back in their heels a lot. If you're walking and something happens to knock you backwards, your weight's already back here, you're gonna go backwards faster than again if you were in the center. That's all stuff too that's strengthening, if you're here like this, strengthening those glutes. Those are postural muscles. I know we don't always think about them as postural muscles. Core is also postural muscles. If we're bent over like this, our core doesn't need to work as hard. If we're standing up a little bit more, our core has to work a little bit harder. And things too, like if, you've seen people who have like the rounded shoulders, or people who sit, a lot of times people who sit at a desk, right, who do a lot of the computer. Also, if everything's in front of us, right? We read books in front of us. We're on our phone in front of us. The tablet's in front of us. Anything to stretch out that chest and strengthen those muscles in between the shoulder blades are going to help keep you upright as well. That's also where I said about having the walkers the correct height, or the canes the right height, is so that you are in that right posture. Because just because you're using an assistive device doesn't mean 100% you're not going to fall down. Unfortunately, gravity does not cease to exist because you use a walker or a cane. Things can still happen, and if you're more forwards or more backwards, they still might happen. Less likely because you have another point of stability, but still a possibility. So, said all of these things, what can you do? So, exercise in general, there's this wonderful sheet that's on the back there, and we'll talk about these a little bit too. These are all things, that was a good catch. I'm just gonna pat myself on the back for that one. These are all really good exercises for balance. Now, I'm not saying you have to go home and do all of these exercises every day, right? These are examples of things that you can go home today and start doing now to help improve your balance. So we're already talking about these, we might as well. As far as for strength, like we said, glutes and ankles, things like that. So two of our examples here, the bridges and the sit to stands, are really gonna get those glutes. Moving from sitting to standing, you don't always think of it as like, well, okay, that's great, that's strength, it's not really helping my balance. But how many times have you tried to get out of the chair and you get up and you're like, and back down I go, right? You didn't quite get forwards enough. So it does help you do that. The nice thing is though, worst case scenario, there's a nice soft place to land behind you. The bridges, these can be done if you aren't a get off the ground type person. These are good to do in bed as well. They're also super functional for that sort of sidebar, because to move around in bed, you do have to kind of bridge, lift your hips up, shift them over if you're trying to scoot around in bed. So those can easily be done in bed. You do not have to get on the floor to do those. If you are someone who is, a get on the floor, get off the floor person, always make sure that you're near something that if you needed assistance getting up for the balance, like a chair, the couch, anything like that, you'd be able to do that. For posture, there's 8 gajillion different exercises for all of these, right? But the 3 for posture that our options are this bird dog, which I know is funny. I just learned why it's called bird dogs recently. You know those like hunter dogs that go, so I have a friend who has a German short-haired pointer, I think they're called. And then they said something about pointing for the bird, and I went, oh my God, bird dogs. And she's like, what the heck? Yes, that's what he is. I just figured it out the other day. I was very proud of myself. So anyway, bird dogs for posture, because you're working on your upper body and your core and your glutes when you're doing these, you're getting a ton of bang for your buck with this guy. Even though it's on your hands and knees, when you're lifting that leg up, I'm getting a lot of glute and I'm getting a nice straight back.
I think you could demonstrate the other one, because there's no way I can be on my knees with arthritis.
The bird dog,
Yeah,
the standing
I'm not sure I
version.
understand it.
Yeah.
The,
So the standing version that's right next to it, that's what you're asking me to demonstrate,
yeah, do you
correct?
mind?
Yeah, no problem. All you do is you come up to the wall
Mhm.
and you're gonna do exactly what you would have done on your knee. I'm gonna put this down so I don't drop it. You would just lift one arm and one leg and then switch.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you're doing that, when I lift back, I'm kind of squeezing my glute a little bit and lifting that arm up as much as I can. Yeah. Yeah. The other one is those rows. Those are really good for the muscles in between your shoulder blades. Yeah, the ones that keep your posture up, keep your shoulders back. With that, you can't really see it in the picture, but he's got that band looped around something, and you're rowing back, squeezing those shoulder blades together and back. Yeah. The last two on here are a little bit more balance focused. They're also going to get the ankles going because as you do it, you'll feel those ankle muscles moving. I'd like to point out in both of these that there is a chair or something stable there when they're practicing them. Please, if you do go home and try these, please make sure that you have some sort of chair. I tell people the counters in the kitchen all the time. Something stable that if you were to lose your balance, you could grab. So this tandem stance is putting one foot directly in front of the other. Anything that narrows your base of support, meaning this is a really wide one, really stable, anything that has a more narrow base of support where they're pretty much in a line is going to be a bigger balance challenge. Alrighty? The other one here is single leg stance, standing on one leg. There's also a lot of benefit to doing these even if you have to hold on. A lot of people think if I don't hold on, or I'm sorry, if I do hold on, then I'm not working on my balance. I'm not getting anything. You're still getting the strength and the input from those muscles to your brain of being able to do it. A lot of times, people's inability to stand on one leg is because they just don't have the strength to do it, or their brain doesn't know how to activate those muscles. So the more we can practice that, the better it is.
Do you have a suggestion how often or how long we should exercise these?
Yeah.
Try these?
These ones, I would say a couple of times a week, maybe 3 times a week, if you can work on in there. And again, it doesn't have to be one of those things where you do everything every day. I tell people a lot of times that there's a chunk of 10 exercises that they want to get, or everyone reads things online, whatever. I should be doing this, this, and this. How am I going to do all of this? Do 1 or 2 things a day, 5 minutes a day. Whatever you get done in 5 minutes, then the next day, pick from that list of something you didn't do the day before. The more often you work on balance, the more regularly that you work on balance, the better balance you will have. Doesn't mean you have to spend an hour doing a balance workout every day. 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day is plenty. So anyway, like I was saying with these guys as well, if you're holding on to something, hold on to something, you're still gonna feel those ankles moving around, you're still gonna feel those hips moving around. Then as that gets easier, lessen your grip a little bit, or take one hand away maybe, but have it be there in case, timber, and then you're going. And then as far as what PT can do for you, a lot of times, I think sometimes people don't know how PT is gonna help them. They just think, well, I'm losing my balance, I'm falling down, I don't know what who's gonna be able to help me with this? This is where I get nerdy. So, we can help you as physical therapists determine what part of your balance is most effective, whether that's your vestibular system, or if it's the neuropathy in your feet. We can't change the neuropathy, unfortunately, but we can help strengthen all the other parts that help with your balance to be able to stop the risk of falling. If you have vision issues, right, and you can't be as dependent on vision, then we have to make sure that everything else is stronger, right? We have to make sure that your proprioception is stronger, maybe your vestibular system is stronger, that your muscles are stronger. I use the example a lot, and I think this tends to help people. If you, like a deaf person or a blind person, right? One of their senses is missing, so the other ones get stronger in order to compensate. That's what balance training is, right? Strengthening what we can and addressing what we can to compensate for the stuff that we can't, basically. We have a lot of different balance tests that we do to help with that. I mean, there's hundreds of different balance tests that can be done to figure out what it is. And then with that information, we can give exercises, more targeted exercises, right, on how to do that. On how to strengthen what we find, right? We find weaknesses. Sometimes it's, your ankles are pretty strong, but your hips aren't really working. So it's when you get those tougher losses of balance, or when someone bumps into you too hard, your glutes aren't working. So now we got to strengthen that up. Sometimes it is just about, you've been using I'm not saying you're using your cane wrong, but I'm just looking at you. You're using your assistive device wrong, so it's not really benefiting you. And if you raised it up or lowered it down or changed the side, you'd notice a world of difference. Sometimes it's even just education on things you can do around your house to make it a safer environment. My soapbox about throw rugs, I don't like them. Yeah, because they are anything that you can trip over, right? Back to my grandma, she no longer has throw rugs. I took them all away. So, along with lots of her shoes. She doesn't have a lot of her shoes anymore. We threw those away and bought new ones. She loves when I come over. But anyway, so.
I was gonna say cats.
Yeah, pets are wonderful. They are sometimes a tripping hazard. So that's that, being aware of your surroundings, knowing where the dog is or where the cat is. Sometimes when you're aware, they change from the time you were aware, took a step, and then they went underneath you, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? But being aware of those things, right? I'm not saying go home and throw the cat away, but just be aware of where the cat is. The other thing with PT is we can give you all the stuff to do at home. There's some stuff that is just not going to be super safe for you to do on your own. At least maybe not initially, right? So I'm going to use the example of you said stepping over something. That might not be something that I'd say, okay, go home and practice stepping over a bunch of things. If that's something that you feel like you can't do and is not safe to do, going home and trying it by yourself is not the best course of action. Or if you fell, if you fell tripping over something, going back to that object and saying, I should practice stepping over this again, probably not great. It already won the battle once. Let's train a little before we go back into that battle. But those are things that in physical therapy, in your sessions with a physical therapist, you can work on. So everyone hates when I pull out the hurdles, right? But super functional for stepping over stuff in the yard, stepping over the dog or the cat, But you have a PT right there hanging on to you or hovering right by, so that if something does go awry, we gotcha. We can catch you and you're not going down. So you can practice these things in a safer environment. Eliciting those stepping reactions too that I talked about a while back of being able to take a big step quickly. Those are things we can also practice too. I tell people a lot of times in sessions, the goal isn't for you not to lose your balance the entire time. It's for you to practice what you do when you lose your balance, right? Nothing makes me happier than when we're doing something that's really hard for someone and they lose their balance and they take a step and catch themselves. And I'm like, oh, success! We did it! Right? Or they come in and tell me like, I almost fell down, but I didn't because I took a step. It's like the heavens open and I'm so happy. Yeah? So things like that, again, practicing them in a safe environment with people who are trained and things like that, so that when these things happen unexpectedly in life and they occur, your body knows what to do and how to handle it. Do you guys have any other questions? I know that we've had, questions as we went, but any other questions or anything I didn't talk about that you're curious about?
Many of these exercises have a video number under them. Is that something we can access?
Yeah, so the video number thing, I didn't even notice that, but you're right. The website that we get these from is called HEP2Go, so it basically is
It says it on the bottom.
on the bottom. So it's there's a way you can do it. I don't actually know how. These are all things though that if you wanted a video of them for more info, if you typed them into like a YouTube or on Google or something like that, there's a million videos of these things. They're all pretty common exercises that they would be able to show you. There's tons of tutorials from, other PTs and exercise professionals that will show you how to do these exercises and talk about the correct form, things like that. If you go home and you're going, I don't remember what she said about this one. So
understand.
Yeah, and this video will be online as well.
Me too, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
Does, do insurances usually cover?
Yep, insurance will cover.
Open-ended, or do you need a prescription from your physician?
So, in New York State, going down the prescription, then I'll come back there. With New York State, you can come to physical therapy under what's called direct access law, which basically means you can come without a script for either 30 days or 10 visits, whichever comes first. After that point, we do need a script because New York State decided we can see you for 30 days, but after that, we gotta get someone else involved.
One caveat to
Yeah,
that
I was
is if
gonna
you
say.
have a Medicare or Medicare Advantage plan, we do need a doctor to sign off on one of our forms, which is called a plan of care. So as long as you're in cahoots with your doctor and they're knowing that what's going on, normally we don't have an issue with the doctor saying, hey, you know what, balance and falls prevention is a good idea. I'm gonna sign off on it.
Yeah,
So
very rarely.
just to keep them in the loop.
Yeah, thank you. You beat me to it, but yeah. And it is something that insurance will cover. Everyone's plans are a little bit different, whether they have a visit limit or not. Co-pays will be slightly different based on people's insurances, but that's something that Kelly gets to have the fun of looking at. Every time someone makes an appointment, she gets to go on the website and find all that information out for us. She loves it so much. Anything else?
I'll give a plug for physical therapists because I think it's the best thing to do to be in, consultation with you guys.
Yeah.
Then you can do your exercises at home on the other days.
Yeah.
But to have that guidance is like so valuable.
Well, good. I'm glad you've had a good experience with it.
I have to say that this has been so useful. All the things you've said have been
Good.
so useful.
Well, good. I'm glad. That was the hope and the plan. That's what you all came here for was helpful, useful information. So I'm glad. Alrighty. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
So I'm just gonna touch on just a couple things. Another thing that we do offer here is we can do home screenings. So we can have a PT come to your house and help you to better manage and keep it safe at home. So that's something that we can also do, as Nicole was saying with the physical therapy. The one thing that's really different about Wellness 360 and not with other physical therapy places is everybody that we treat is one-on-one. You're never co-treated. We are right there with you the entire time. So we're not giving you exercises, leaving you in a room and going to our computers. We are in the room with you the entire time. So what we can do is we can individualize the treatment plan. Everybody came in here with different issues. So not everyone's gonna be treated the same way. And like I was saying earlier in the very beginning when a couple people were here, like we always ask, what's your goals? What do you love to do? Gardening, Let's get you back to gardening. Let's get you back to doing the things that you wanna do. But there's always a rhyme and a reason behind what we do. All of our PTs are really good about educating the public. So when you come to PT, you're not just gonna get exercises, you're gonna get exercises and you know why you're doing the exercises. You know what they're doing because you're gonna be more apt to do them at home when you understand why you're doing the different exercises. So Kelly is here. If this is something that, again, Kelly's our insurance guru. Another offering that we give you is we verify your insurance. So you can give us the information, we verify the insurance, that way you know what to expect when you come in for your appointment. Kelly, do you have anything at all you'd like to chime in with that?
I always call your insurance provider for you just to double check your benefits. Obviously, it's always a good idea for you to call as well, so you are in on it. I'm gonna park myself right up front for anyone who may be interested in setting up an appointment with a physical therapist. We can get the ball rolling on that for you.
So yeah, definitely if you choose this is something that you'd like to do, we can verify your insurance, take your information, get you set up. Even if it's just an evaluation to see where you're at. Maybe it's an evaluation to attend one of our classes. Maybe you kind of see where you're at and maybe you want to go to the osteoporosis class or the balance and fall class. And one of those classes that we're going to be hosting in the new building.
So you're not keeping this one and moving?
We are not keeping any, our Webster or University. The entire team is going to be in one location.
Where is it?
So it's 961 Panorama Trail South. So in Panorama Trail, when you go go towards East Rochester. There's a Hampton Inn, there's car lots, and different things. It's going up the hill. Brand new building. See you, Nicole. Oh, perfect.
It's gonna be in between your two offices, is that?
No, we're just gonna have that one office.
I know,
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah,
it's
middle
kind of
ground.
in between the two
Yes, yes.
current locations.
Yeah, we found parking is gonna be wonderful. We have tons of handicap parking, which as you drove here, you see we don't have here. So we really took a lot of time and thought into why we chose where we chose. And it's in a medical plaza. It's a brand new building. Again, it's 9,000 square feet. We're gonna have everything. I believe we have 10 physical therapists-ish, including Lindsay and I. And then we have 3 massage therapists. And then we have group fitness instructors. So we have all different types and styles of group fitness classes. But either way, you would need that initial evaluation. So if that's something that you're interested in, they can talk to you about the classes that we have. The class that I teach is the 360 Fitness, and that works on balance, posture, and strength with keeping osteoporosis contraindications in mind. So there's no major twisting, there's no forward bending, it's all neutral core, and it's all very safe to help build your muscle mass.
Are we all on your email list, I hope now?
You are all on our email list. If you don't want to be on our email list, it's very easy to just unsubscribe, but since you guys put in your information, anyone that gave us a valid email, we try not to we're working with a new company and they seem to be a little happy with the with the text and so I apologize about that. That's not who we are. This is this new company. We're trying to figure it out and we're trying to see, they brought you in here, so we are thankful for that. We just have to put a little of our spin on it, so we're not hounding you. But we do send out a newsletter every month. It's gonna tell you the local activities that we have available that we're participating in, whether it's for PD, whether it's for MS, whether it's for Alzheimer's. Like this month we're doing Alzheimer's bike ride to raise money, and there's different things that we do for ataxia and all kinds of different diagnoses. Osteoporosis. Yep. There's always a stress less kind of article. There's an article that you learn something new in. Then it'll give you all of the upcoming things where you'll find us, the workshops that we're going to be having every month. So every workshop will probably be the 2 of us because we're the ones that love to do it. So it'll probably, unless it's PD focused, it'll probably be Nicole and I. So we'll get to know each other really well.
How does massage play into this?
So massage therapy is cash-based here. You do pay out of pocket for the massage therapy, but we do focus a lot on medical work. So I'm dual degreed. I'm a physical therapy assistant and a licensed massage therapist. So I do a lot of focused work on myofascial release, chronic pain management, neck pain, back pain, SI joint dysfunction, all of those things that are more specific to a diagnosis. And then we have 2 licensed massage therapists that do, they have their own specialties. One does trigger point therapy, another does, Swedish and, the relaxation massages. So it just depends on what you're looking for. Anybody else have any questions for me? Thank you all so much for coming out today. It's a beautiful day. So if you're curious and have any more questions, Kelly will be available for you. You don't have to schedule, but you can ask her any questions that you may have. So, all right. Thank you all so much.